Hey Bulldogs, welcome to our 8th episode of the Doghouse. I'm your host, Brody Wiederholt. The Doghouse is a podcast designed to go behind the scenes of Van Meter schools and the Van Meter community. And today, we're here with our principal and superintendent to talk about our district leaders inside of Van Meter schools. So please let me introduce Mr. Lamoureux and Mr. Durflinger. Welcome, guys.
Good morning.
Good morning. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So let's just kind of get right into these questions because I think when you look at someone and you say, oh, that's the principal of our school, you know, I feel like some people can really definitively say, and superintendent obviously too, but I think people can definitively say I think some people can definitively say that, you know, they know what this is, but I feel like there's some people out there who, you know, they see what you guys do, but they don't know specifically what you guys do. So what is it that you do?
Yeah, I'll let you go ahead and start because then kind of work our way up.
Yeah, so my role is, 6-12 principal or 6th through 12th grade principal. I've been with the district. It's my 16th year. Started off as a social studies teacher, both at the middle school and high school. And then my role specifically as a principal is really to be a building leader for both the middle school and high school. Hire good staff, make sure that we are helping our kids become good people and really just, be a leader of leaders that we have in our classrooms and talking specifically about our teachers.
Yeah, I think it's a little easier for kids to have an idea what the principal does because they're working with the principal more closely. Yeah. I mean, obviously the building principal is going to be working with the teachers, but they're also having regular conversations with students. And this is my 17th year in the district. And for many of the kids that are seniors now, they probably don't remember, but I was the principal who actually was principal when we hired Adam. And then for a while I was principal and superintendent, so I did both roles. And then now I'm just superintendent. And I think probably the biggest difference between like a superintendent and a building principal is you're a little further away from the day-to-day work that happens in classrooms, and it's more big picture. So my role is more about setting the vision, making sure that the building administrators and teachers have the resources. So it's more about kind of the business side of it, I guess. So kind of big picture, setting the vision, helping create policy and procedures that we're going to use to make sure that kids and teachers have everything they need to be successful. But it's kind of one of the, I guess, negative parts of the job is that, I don't work as closely with kids as I did, 15 years ago when I was still building principal.
Yeah, no, that's great. So that kind of leads into two of my questions. So I'll kind of hit you with two of them. But so what really either inspired you or what led you to this role in the school? And also, and I'll touch up on the other question later, actually. So let's just start with that for now.
Yeah, so a little background first. I originally had no desire to ever go into education. Graduated from a small school in Northeast Iowa. I was originally a biology major and went to the University of Iowa. Got into some advanced level chemistry courses and was like, maybe this isn't the right path for me. And then, ended working with my advisor at the University of Iowa. Thought maybe I'd go the elementary route. I'd coached some youth sports when I was in high school and helped out with those. Volunteered in a kindergarten classroom for 10 hours, had to do some practicum experience, which is kind of what leads up to student teaching eventually as part of the getting your teaching license. I realized that early elementary probably wasn't the route for me. I liked history classes, and I ended up, becoming a history teacher. I was out in Arizona for a year, student taught out there, and then taught social studies, and just got lucky to get a job here in Van Meter. I don't know if Mr. Durflinger remembers this, maybe he does, but I actually interviewed over Skype, which would be, I don't even know if Skype still exists now, honestly.
I'm not sure if it does either.
Interviewed over Skype and got the position. And I first started off here, I coached a bunch of different sports, taught high school social studies, and that's kind of how I got into it. And then as far as actually getting into leadership, I had some opportunities when I was still teaching to lead some different teams, be a mentor teacher to new staff or people new to the district. And I think Mr. Durflinger, Mr. Roberts at the time, and some of the other administration, I think they saw some leadership abilities in me. and did my master's program, and ended up getting principal position. And I've been here now as an administrator going on my 11th year.
Yeah.
Yeah, so kind of similar path, really. So when I graduated high school, had no idea what I wanted to do. I'm from Southern Iowa. Honestly, a lot of kids didn't go to college from where I grew up at, Eldon Cardinal School District. So I went to community college. At that time, to be a coach in a school, to be a head coach, you had to be a teacher. Well, right after I graduated, the superintendent happened to be at Cardinal, said, "Hey, we need a junior high basketball coach." I love basketball, so I had to get my coaching authorization, and started coaching junior high basketball. Loved it. I was, again, not really sure what I wanted to do. So I'm like, I don't know, this coaching thing, I really like it. But if I want to be a head coach, you got to be a teacher. So it sounds real inspiring about why I got into it. But it was really because I wanted to coach. Loved social studies, loved history. So that was the path that I took. As far as getting into education, then I went on and played some basketball for a while. Wasn't really very good, but still played. But it really helped me from a coaching standpoint. But to me, it was when you start coaching and you start having those relationships with kids, and you can kind of see the influence you're having. You just want to continue to make that circle larger. So, from coaching, you get into teaching, and then you got a bigger group of kids you're working with, and you can see some of the impact you're having. And that, so that's, as you're having those experiences, you're like, man, what, hopefully there's more that we can do to have a greater influence. And in reality for me, I got married pretty young, started having kids. My wife was staying at home. For us to be able to continue to function as a family, we needed another higher level income. Well, my wife at that time was staying home, as I mentioned, so I started taking classes to get my master's. But ultimately, I just felt like there was things within systems, within the school system, that I would like to have an influence on, and that would impact kids, and that kind of leads you down the administration path. And got my master's degree, and then eventually I went back home to teach and coach, but I became principal there at Cardinal, and was coaching, and was middle school principal, and then kind of the same thing. By then we'd had 4 kids, and it's like, okay, if we're gonna need to work on getting my superintendency. So I did that, which is kind of more hours beyond the master's degree. And the reason I came to Van Meter, and I tell people this all the time, it was at that point in my life, it's now been 17 years ago, I felt for me to be an effective superintendent, to be an effective district leader, I needed to have a broader experience. And that's what led me up here. I came up here thinking I'd be principal for a few years, and I would go be superintendent somewhere else. And then it just worked out where I was able to do both here, and I never left. But it's, when you become superintendent, you just have a lot more, truly more influence over the entire district, to try to create a system that's, at least that I believe is good for kids and good for our community. So yeah, that's how we ended up here.
Yeah, no, that's a great story. I think I just love the fact that you guys both, really, I think when students or even parents might look up to a principal or a superintendent, they might look and see that, and they might think that, that was really a set path in your life to get to a role in the school like this, but it really wasn't for you guys. And I think for even students who don't really know what they're wanting to do, don't know what they want to do yet, even seniors who might be graduating, I think that's a great story that you guys uphold, is that you don't have to have something set in your life from the beginning, and that you are always willing to change and, just follow what you want to do. And I think you guys agree in saying that, you guys wouldn't have it any other way. You guys are glad to be here at Van Meter, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the biggest thing is you really can't fully control everything that's going to happen in your life.
Yeah.
So you want to have broad enough experiences that you can pivot and you can adjust. And, for both of us, really, I mean, we've been going to school for a really long time. I like to tell people, basically my whole life I've been going to school. And there's some drawbacks to that, honestly. I think sometimes it's better for educator people to have influence on what happens in schools, because you need to have those experiences to be able to create a system that's best for kids. But on the flip side of that, I think sometimes people from outside of the system, education system, think they have simple solutions that don't always work. But from a student perspective, yeah, I mean, you got to, at least for me, and I can't speak for Adam, but for me, it truly came down to my passion. My interest was sports and basketball specifically, and just the impact that had on kids and that kind of collective, we're in this together sort of thing. And then when you see that, it's like, man, you'd like to have an influence for more kids, and then that's, just kind of leads you up the ladder, I guess.
Well, and like Mr. Durflinger said, part of it's the skills and attributes that you have, but some of it's luck too. I mean, I got lucky to get a position here at Van Meter at the time. So in 2010, there was some changes at the state legislature, and districts were having to cut teachers, and I was just fortunate enough to get a position. I mean, otherwise my career may have went a different path. I was already considering, okay, what am I going to do if I can't get a teaching position in Iowa? And I was like, well, I'm going to have to start looking at some other career paths. And again, I got lucky, got a position, and I've been fortunate to, I met my wife while I was working here. She was actually teaching at Marshalltown at the time, but she works for the district. And then, we have 4 kids now too, and 3 of them are school age. And it's been awesome. But 10 years from now, I don't know what my future will hold. I'd like to think that I'm still here at Van Meter, but you just never know. I mean, your career paths and changes can come in life that are outside of your control.
And in my opinion, I think that's always great. Change, people are scared of change, but I think change is always good within it. On this podcast a lot, we talk about, overcoming adversity, or, which is also just overcoming changes. And I think the big thing that people learn to understand in school and even just in life when they're growing up is that, adversity and change, it happens in your life. And if you need to be able to adapt, and, that's really something about life that I think not everyone can get. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely Adam's heard me say this so many times. I say it to my kids, they get tired of it. But once I get a window back in my office, you maybe don't remember, but the Charles Swindoll quote that I have is, life is 10% what happens and 90% how you respond to it. And I truly believe that what you're saying is, our attitude and how we handle things that happen really are going to define what you become, and, how you think your life feels, and if you think it's successful or not successful. It's really just how you handle things. Adversity is part of it, and it's also success too. It's not always bad, but how are you handling success?
Yeah, so that actually kind of leads into my next question I was going to ask you guys. But with roles like this, as we just talked about, you guys do, you guys weren't expecting to get these roles, but maybe there's a student out there, or there's even, I don't know, some staff here, or even someone at a different school, or just someone watching this that kind of wants to know how you get into this role, that like superintendent and principal, if you're striving to go there. So how would you say that, guys, happens for you guys, even though, it wasn't really set for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, well, the reality is there are certain steps that are kind of required by law for the most part. They're becoming more flexible, but typically speaking, you need to be a teacher first. And there's a lot of pathways to that now. There's more pathways to becoming a teacher than there have ever been. You don't have to follow the traditional path of getting your, bachelor's degree in whatever teaching area you want to pursue, and, student teach and then get a job and start teaching. But at some point you need to teach. I mean, there's more pathways to getting there that people can experience. And then from there, you got to get your master's degree in administration, and then to become a principal. And then once you're a building principal, you can also, there's other administrative positions, curriculum, some other areas. You have to have experience in those, and then you get more schooling, and then you can get your superintendency endorsement, and then you can be a superintendent. But you pretty much have to teach, pretty much have to be an administrator for a period of time, and then you can become a superintendent. The thing about superintendent position is there's only every district has to have a superintendent. Some districts share the position. So there's roughly 320 some schools in the state of Iowa. There's probably about 290 superintendents. So it's It's there's a couple reasons for that. Part of it is not everybody wants to be in that role, but part of it is just the schooling and having those experiences to be able to pursue it.
Yeah, and the thing I would add is if you get into teaching and think you have aspirations of getting into building leadership or district leadership of some sort, taking on some of those leadership roles, whether it be like leading a department of some sort or your content team. At the time, we had some K-12. When I first got into teaching, we had some K-12 teams. I had the opportunity to work with elementary teachers, teachers that have been here for 20 some years. Different personalities, different challenges, and that really helps you develop some of those leadership skills. Obviously coaching or, being part of, leading some sort of club or organization. Those are all opportunities to lead individuals, whether they be adults or students, in different ways other than just the classroom and the day-to-day routines of teaching.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. A lot of times you see people that work their way up through the system to become principals and then superintendents. They've been a leader in some other role, whether it be a coach or like a band director or choir director or whatever the case may be. One of the biggest challenges, though, I think, is moving from that role. You're working with kids, which is why most of us got into the profession, to now you're working more with adults, which is a whole different experience and a whole different animal. I mean, adults can be more challenging than kids sometimes. So if you think you want to pursue that, you've got to also understand that you're not going to work as closely with kids as you once did. So just got to keep that in mind as well.
Yeah. So what is your kind of guys' day-to-day within the school? So as a principal and superintendent, do you guys think your day is fixed to something you'd normally do, or do you think it's pretty flexible and you guys are doing different things every day? And honestly, what just happens every day for you guys?
Well, I think it's for sure not fixed. Every day looks a little bit different. We all have kind of routines. As I just mentioned earlier, I'm a morning person, so I like to get here early and try to get kind of some of the, I don't know, for lack of a better term, kind of busy work stuff done early. So I try to get here between 5 and 5:30 every morning. That gives me a good couple hours to kind of get stuff done that doesn't involve people. But then that's the job. People are our job. So that's kids, that's staff members, that's family members, that's the community. That's a really big part of our job. So we're talking to people a lot, collaborating with others to try to, get ideas. But for me, it's honestly, it always seems like it's like preparation for what's next. Like it's making sure we've got the right procedures and policies in place to, provide the best support again for our staff and for our kids. But then what is that, what's the next thing? Our district, we're growing. So it's always like, okay, do we need to look at facilities? Do we need to look at hiring staff? And then how is that going to impact the entire system? And then probably the biggest part of my job is just the financial part of it and making sure that, we have the resources that we need to be successful, but that we're also not asking for too much from taxpayers, that kind of thing. So, that's, in general, kind of the day-to-day thing. For sure not as, I told Adam this before too. My favorite job is building principal. It always has been, because it's that job. You're making hundreds, if not thousands, of decisions every day, and a lot of times they're like, you got to change on a dime or make a decision on a dime. Whereas role of superintendent, it's not as fast. The decisions that I make are a lot of time more significant, though. Like they're going to impact a lot more people. So, but you usually have more time to make them. So.
Yeah, and outside of a handful of standing meetings that we have that are, we meet sometimes before school, sometimes after school, and sometimes throughout the day. The goal for me is to, interact with as many students and staff on a daily basis, get in classrooms, give teachers feedback on what their instruction looks like and how they're supporting our students. Occasionally dealing with, behaviors, but then also celebrating, good things. A couple weeks ago, we had an opportunity to offer a student scholarship, setting up those experiences. We've got Career Day coming up in a couple weeks, helping manage some of those experiences for our students. Just being visible, when teachers come to me with a question or students come to me with questions, supporting them with whatever it may be. try and interact with parents as much as possible, more so outside of the school day at extracurricular events. It's really just, being visible, uh, being a leader, and that takes many different forms throughout the day, making different decisions, like Mr. Durflinger mentioned there. And each day is different. We got the rest of today and then tomorrow, then we get a little Thanksgiving break. So it's, if there are certain times where it's important to be even more visible and make sure that, just kids know that you're in the building and that you care about them, and make it through till this next break.
All right. So we're coming up on our last couple of questions, but I wanted to ask you what is some of the favorite parts about your job? And then what are some of the parts of your job that, really aren't desirable?
Okay, I'll start off with what I enjoy most, or some of the highlights of being a building principal. Obviously interacting with the students on a day-to-day basis, watching them. I get the opportunity to watch them from sixth graders and even elementary, since we are a K-12 building. Watch them grow up and develop as individuals, and watch what they become and the different successes that they have and whatever they choose to do while they're in school, and all the extracurriculars and opportunities they have. I think it's enjoyable to see young, kids develop into young adults and just become good people. And, sometimes though, it may be, 5 years after they graduate. It's great when I get to go to, see one of a student that I either taught or, been the building principal for, and just see the success that they've had after Van Meter, and, get the opportunity to talk about them. Maybe they've started a family. Those are all great experiences, because that is one thing with this position and working in schools. Sometimes you don't see the impact that you've had on a kid until, they might be 30 before you see it. But just to see how appreciative they are of the opportunities they had while they were here, and the support that they had, and that hopefully everyone while they were here truly cared about their best interest and wanting them to become, successful young individuals. And success has many different definitions. So it doesn't necessarily just mean getting a good job, but it could be starting a family. It could be, finding their career path that they want. And just that'd be the highlights, I would say.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a whole lot more to add. I mean, for sure, it is being able to see people become the best version of themselves, and our roles are to kind of help create the processes and procedures to ensure that everybody has whatever it is they need to be successful. And I think from a vision standpoint, we really work hard to personalize learning, and that can mean a lot of different things. But to me, it really just means we're going to give you what you need, when you need it, however you need it, and that includes staff. So Mr. Lamoureux is talking about, kind of from a kid perspective, but I also look at teachers that we've hired, and where they were at, 8, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, whenever they are, however long they've been here, and to where they're at now. And our role as district leaders is to ensure that they have everything that they need to be successful. So just kind of, watching that take place is always really enjoyable. I think obviously the successes that you get to see, even in the more, Adam or Mr. Moray, was talking more long term, and that's clearly where you're going to see a lot of times it's going to be way after. But also, in the end, I love seeing kids change from, especially in high school. That's probably more where, we'll see them all the way through, but when a kid was a freshman coming in, and just who they were, clearly not ready for whatever may happen in their life. And then by the time they're seniors, it's like, man, I would hire that kid right now. I just love watching people develop. And it's just fun, and it takes time. That's the biggest thing. But like Mr. Lamoureux was talking about, sometimes you may not see that forever. I think of my own kids. Believe me, they all took different paths to where they're at now. And they're getting older. My oldest kid's 27 now, so it's been kind of interesting to kind of watch that change as well as I've aged. But just watching people develop, I guess.
Yeah. I feel like, speaking as a student of Van Meter, it's one of the most unique things about our building is that it is K through 12, and well, on pre-K through 12 too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you really have the full range of students, which is not something you see in schools really just around our community even. I don't even know how many pre-K through 12 buildings are in Iowa.
There's a handful.
Yeah.
There's probably more than people think, but there's not a lot for sure.
Yeah, so I mean, I've been here since pre-K. I never moved here in my school life, but so I've really grown up with all the people that have been around me, and that's something that you just don't see in some schools. After elementary, they might move to a middle school, and then eventually from that middle school, they even move to a high school in some of the bigger schools. But with both our smaller building and our closer knit community, that really helps. I feel like that really helps build up our grades to be as successful as they can be. And, also, you grow up with these people, and, I feel like it keeps you in check as well with, like you've these are your peers your whole life. So, you really set a standard for yourself with them.
Yeah, that's one thing I'd like to highlight too, is like I get the opportunity to see my own kids every day in school and get to see how, each year how they change and develop, and how, their joy for school and coming to school. I mean, there's multiple times a week when my kids get home from school, they want to come home and play school. And that's it's awesome to see that they enjoy coming here every day. And I get that opportunity to see them. And, you wouldn't necessarily get that opportunity if we were in a building that, hadn't, separate campuses. And so it's been a pleasure for me. And I know Mr. Durflinger had the same opportunity watching his kids grow up.
I mean, I think what you're saying is exactly right. I think we really don't, you don't understand what you have until it's gone, right? But when you're in this kind of PK-12 system, like the culture and community you're talking about, I think it definitely has influenced our system quite a bit. I mean, this now, you're kind of getting towards the end of it.
Yeah.
And you just look at how you behave because there are younger kids around, and how much those younger kids look up to the older kids. I think it lends itself to a more positive experience overall. I mean, there's always this worry that younger kids are going to see or hear something maybe that they shouldn't. But I also think that influences and impacts our older kids to make sure that, they're always thinking about others. Whereas sometimes, when you're in other districts, maybe that's not the case here because you're just trying to show off for your peers. So that makes it a unique experience.
Yeah, Friday getting school off and going to the Dome for not just high schoolers, but one of the things I always notice even at every single game, and especially with, they have the cameras at the Dome where they have the people cameras where you get to see the people, and there's the student section, and then right next to the student section is our middle school football team who wears their jerseys, and they're cheering on just as loud as the student section. And that's honestly that's just a great moment to see within our community. Is, usually you might see at some schools, you see parents and you see our student section cheering, but now you have our whole building cheering. So I think that's something great.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a greater connection because we're all in the same space.
Yeah. So let's talk about more. We've been talking about the positives. Let's talk more about the negatives, even though, it's something you don't want to talk about with the school, but I feel like it needs to be said. It's a part of the job.
Yeah, for sure. So I think our things are going to maybe be similar, but they're probably a little bit different. So for me, it's always like the financial stuff. We generate our revenue based on the number of kids we have, and taxes. I mean, that's just, it is. And not everybody likes paying taxes, myself included, but you've got to see the purpose, the greater purpose, and the impact those dollars are going to have on students. But, being able to manage it, I mean, that, and some people don't like how you're spending money and, that kind of thing. So that's, for me, is probably the biggest piece. And then the other piece that's really gotten more involved in public education, at least I feel like it more now, maybe it's just my role, but it's just the politics. It's just different now. And some of the policies that's impacted on how we function as a school, and how the rules have changed and the laws have changed. Sometimes I agree with them, sometimes I don't, but we've got to uphold the law. Probably the one that impacts kids the most, cell phones. I mean, I personally, this is just my own personal opinion, did not like that law because it required us to do something that I felt like we already had pretty good control over. Now, there's going to be plenty of people that didn't think we had good control over cell phones, and I understand that, but we should have been able to decide that locally. Like, we should be able to decide what's best for our community, not, the government from a higher level saying have to do this. So those kinds of things, I don't like.
Yeah.
But on the flip side of it, hey, if that's what the law is, that's, we're going to enforce that. And then there's, been other stuff with library books and, blah, blah, blah. But it's just the politics, I think, make the job sometimes. We get sidetracked from what really matters, which is really trying to create the best experience for kids to be the best version of themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with Mr. Durflinger, but another thing that would be sometimes the amount of time it takes to implement some sort of change, and the amount of, Mr. Durflinger probably thinks I go a little slower as a building principal when it comes to change. He's more of just a rip the Band-Aid off type guy and move forward.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you also got to consider, like, are the right people in the committee if you're making some sort of decision that is something across the whole building, and it just sometimes takes longer to do things than it should. And then sometimes you maybe have an idea, and there might be legislative things that limit you to do that, or some of those legislative changes also don't necessarily impact student learning, but they impact our system in some way that takes away from student learning. So and then other things that maybe are challenges, the hiring can sometimes be a challenge, depending on what the position is, depending on the timing of when we advertise for it. But I do feel like that has improved over the last few years. We typically get some really good applicants. Sometimes we just don't get very many of them. And then there's day-to-day stuff. I mean, you just get, if you have a bad week where you've had to deal with, some sort of behaviors, or you've had to deal with a situation, it can get grinding. But at the same time, a lot of times, if you can persevere through a difficult situation or situations, and you come out, with more experience or growth at the end of it, or, maybe it's dealing with a student and they grow from the experience, there can be a positive to some of the negatives or difficulties that we have to deal with on a regular basis.
Yeah. With jobs, there's always something that's going to be hard. It's just how it is in life. Not everything can, just be great. But that sounded a little negative, but like, I'm actually going to re-say that. Yeah, there's just some aspects that, you can't change, especially when dealing with people. It's hard to always have, especially something with like behavioral and also financial, there's always something that, no one wants to do, but someone has to do it. The school, the school right now, it's growing. We have lots and lots of construction going on at the school, and that has to be handled with grace, and I'm sure that's kept both of you very busy, dealing with all of that. So yeah, I'm sure you guys are busy with that.
I mean, you're right. I mean, obviously we can all see the construction and pardon my language here, but it sucks. I mean, there's just no way around it when it's going on. It's not enjoyable. It's it's a hindrance to our environment from just getting into the building and, where we can go and all those kinds of things. We've talked about we're going to get T-shirts made that say it's going to be great when it's done, because we do believe it is going to be. And but on the flip side, it's kind of fun to see the progress, as it builds out. And never, as Adam mentioned, I'm not always the most patient. I try to be, but I'm more of like, let's just get this thing over with, whether it be change or adding an addition to our building. I think that's something that I am always trying to work on. But I think when this project is done, I mean, we're probably going to be grown out on this side about as large as we can. I mean, we're adding a little over 20 classrooms, and we're going to have a nice performing arts space that'll give us also another elementary gym. And it's going to allow, I think we said we have 11 teachers that are sharing space at some point or some, during the day. So hopefully everybody will have their own space. So that'll be good. But on the flip side of it, it also is going to, our footprint's going to be a lot larger. So, maintaining that kind of small school feel that we've been talking about becomes more of a challenge. So we just got to kind of keep that right balance.
Yeah, and I would just like to, quick shout out our students and our staff and our parents and community by and large has been very supportive of the process. Like I use football games as an example. The concessions and restrooms weren't done, and everyone did a great job though. And I think everyone's been very supportive of any changes and just how slow the process has been at times.
I agree 100% with that.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's wrap up this episode. Thank you, Mr. Durflinger, Mr. Lamoureux, for joining me on this podcast to talk about your role within the Van Meter community. So thank you guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
It's great. I love the setup in here. I like the music behind us at the end.
Music.
So usually I give a little shout out to what you guys want to support. So for me, I'm going to say that shout out is just get involved. Get involved in our community. It's not just, get involved with our sports, get involved with our band, our middle school band, which you can probably hear in the background right now, but just get involved within our community, within our school. And for me, speaking as you guys, I feel like that's the best way our community can really help us out. But I also want to ask you guys, what do you think, if someone wants to help support this school, what do you think, or even our staff with it too, what do you guys think that would be?
Well, I think there's a lot of ways people can get involved between our booster clubs, performing arts boosters, our VMEPC, athletic boosters, that people can get involved in that way. But I think the biggest thing is, parents, just be involved in your kids' education. Make sure you know who your teachers are. You're talking to the teachers regularly. Support your teachers. They're most of the time, they've got a pretty good handle on what's going on, and they want to all the time see your kids be the best version of themselves. So just be supportive of the experience they're having.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah,
I'd agree with everything Mr. Durflinger said, and don't be afraid to ask questions. If something comes up, and if you're a parent or a student, asking one of us a question, and then just continue to support the district and advocate for the district. And we get a lot of people that they move here because they want their kids to go to the school here, and that's because of other parents, other community members that have advocated and said how great Van Meter Schools is. We're still going to continue to grow and provide the best experience for our students, and make changes as needed. We want to continue to be one of the best districts in the state.
Yeah. So, were you gonna say something?
No, I just say thanks for having us.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, of course. So if you are interested in becoming a superintendent or principal or really any other role in a school, I know there's always someone out there who wants to be it, but feel free to, I'm sure you guys would love an email or just someone to walk up to you asking, how can I become you? So.
Wow, I don't know if I've ever had anybody ask that, Brody, but we can definitely help them get involved in education.
Yeah. So please go support them. They always love a good conversation with someone talking about that. If you want to support this podcast, please go check out the Van Meter Performing Arts Boosters. We're just trying to, get this space founded, and we have other upcoming events too, like our show choir, and we have some concert. Well, we just had our choir concert, but we're having a couple concerts come up soon. So please go check us out, and until next time.